Good morning and welcome to SimWorld Today. Shout out to Rick yesterday for filling in on our Monday show. We are back in after a chaotic day of travel. We were stuck in an airport all day. Delays upon delays until finally a cancellation on a flight, so was not able to record. So appreciate Rick jumping in and filling in for us. If you were one of the few folks, I guess, maybe the many that thought it, we need more Rick on SimWorld Today. Don't you worry. There's something coming up. I won't say much now, but some things coming down the pipe that we will be excited about coming up on the show. But today, it's been an interesting SWBA offseason. That's where we're going to talk. We're going to talk restricted free agency. I will say this. I sometimes overcorrect in not talking about the Golden State Warriors. Trust me, I know I talk about the Golden State Warriors quite a bit. But I think I overcorrect sometimes by not wanting to take everybody down the Golden State rabbit hole every single time. And one thing that we have not talked about quite a bit is Jonathan Kuminga and his unsigned situation, which he's, according to ESPN, in no rush. Anthony Slater reporting that he's in no rush to sign the Warriors' latest offer. The Athletic put out an article that talked about where many executives around the league thought he should be signing for, the amount-wise. And it was part of a larger restricted free agency class with Josh Giddey, Quentin Grimes, and Cam Thomas, who are getting really rolled over, let's call it, by the new CBA, partially, but mostly by a lack of teams with cap space and an unwillingness to offer a contract to a player that is very likely going to get matched by the team. The Warriors want Kuminga back in some capacity, or they want an asset back, and if it's not a trade, they clearly want Kuminga. Josh Giddey, the Bulls probably want him back. They just don't want to pay him too much. The same for the Sixers and Grimes and the Nets and Cam Thomas. Where this gets interesting, where my mind went as I'm reading these articles, is what's going to happen to restricted free agency. So, and maybe this season, let's rephrase it. What's going to happen with restricted free agency under the current CBA environment? Now, if you're kind of nerdy like me and like to read up on all the cap rules and things like that, we're not going down that track. But obviously, the new first and second apron situation has arrived in the SWBA, and teams are very clearly making decisions about who they're going to sign and for how much to avoid that second apron. The apron is extremely, extremely cost prohibitive, and it was installed to prevent teams from being able to overpay for teams. And this was always, to me, it was framed as an attack on the Warriors. I don't think the Warriors were ever rightfully targeted in that. I know that sounds homerist, but I don't know that I'm wrong on that, because Golden State drafted, signed, re-signed 3 of their 4 best players, and they had a very unique cap spike, which the players agreed on and the league agreed on, that allowed them to get Kevin Durant. So this introduced this second apron CBA. And so as it relates to not only Kuminga, but these 4 teams, what we're seeing is kind of twofold. On the one hand, nobody has cap space, so they don't have the ability to shell out. The team with cap space is the Nets, and we're seeing how they're playing hardball. They don't want to shell out more than they have to for a guy, knowing that the demand financially is simply not there. Right? They don't have to acquiesce to a $25 million deal. This summer, we have seen a lot of deals go well below market value. You look at last season, during the season, Brandon Ingram signed an extension that's going to pay him more than $40 million in year 1. I don't know that Brandon Ingram is a better player than Naz Reid, is a better player than Julius Randle. Those guys are going to be making between $25 and $30 million on their year 1 contracts that they signed in Minnesota this season. The same for Miles Turner, who's going to be just above 20. We have seen the market shift downwards, and this constant escalation of big money has seemingly stopped, and teams are saying, if we don't think you're a number 1 guy, you're not getting number 1 guy money. And that's where it kind of trickles down to where we're at now. And I'm wondering about the future of restricted free agency, because teams are not wanting to shell out $20 million, $15 million. Everything that's been reported is that the Nets, I guess, would offer Cam Thomas a 2-year, $14 million deal. Why is that? 14 per year. Why is that of note? Because that's the mid-level exception. It's what anybody else can offer him. So why would the Nets overpay for a guy without there being any demand? Now, restricted free agency has always been like this, right? Restricted free agents have a propensity to go back to their old team because the team extends the qualifying offer. They likely want them back, and they put the assets on the table. And you look at DeAndre Ayton, signs with the Pacers. The Suns say we want him back. Even though he didn't want to be there, he comes back, and obviously I think that worked out for DeAndre Ayton because he got his money. Didn't really work out for the Suns, and I think it was a dodged bullet by the Pacers because I don't think they make the finals this past season if that trade or that transaction goes through. So there's always been a likelihood that guys return, but suddenly now restricted free agents can't even get an offer sheet. They can't even get a team to play ball because you sign that offer sheet, unless it's just a bloated contract that the second team is willing to take on. The team number one, the previous team, the team that drafted the guy, is probably going to say, no, we'll just bring him back for that. And if we don't like him or it's more than we want, we'll try to find a way to trade him, which, interestingly enough, is pretty much what the Golden State Warriors are trying to do with Jonathan Kuminga. But I'm nervous about restricted free agency becoming this more and more because why were the Nets not trying to bring in Josh Giddey, Jonathan Kuminga, or Quentin Grimes on a roster that really would probably benefit from them? Why are we not seeing teams try to clear out cap space to go and make these deals? Because they're so terrified of the aprons and what the long-term money impact would be. The Bulls don't pay the tax. They don't want to give Josh Giddey a deal that's going to give him the money he probably is worthy of. He's better than Nickeil Alexander-Walker right off. Let's say that right now. I think he's as good, if not better. He should be in that $15 million plus range. The Bulls apparently don't want to do that because that pushes them closer to the aprons. The Sixers are already smack dab against the apron because you've got max deals coming up or already under contract with Tyrese Maxey, with Paul George, and Joel Embiid. They don't want to give Grimes a penny more than he needs to be paid as the market demands. The Warriors are willing to bring Kuminga back, but they want to do it at a deal that's tradable. And when you see all these other deals getting put together that are tradable, $20 million in the case of a guy like Julius Randle, or Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who's in that 14 range, then you're saying, well, why am I going to pay him 30 if all I really need for salary matching is 22? And Kuminga's saying this, I don't know if these are the exact numbers, but I'm just throwing out examples. But there's ramifications for this, and there's clearly teams that are being scared by the CBA and the second apron that are making them hesitant to try to go and make a deal for one of these guys. Does that change next season is where I'm wondering about the future of restricted free agency, because it's rather unfair from a player's perspective to be signed for 4 years and be given these set of circumstances if you're really any four of these guys, but let's just focus on Jonathan Kuminga. Kuminga doesn't want to be in Golden State. He clearly doesn't trust Steve Kerr, and I don't think there's any reason for him to trust Steve Kerr. He has not done a great job. I think this is absolutely terrible mismanagement of a really good player and a good asset that they are not going to likely materialize, or doesn't seem like they may materialize on to the best of their ability because of the scarred relationship that Steve Kerr has introduced. So the Warriors would like to bring him back at a dollar amount that fits their long-term budget. Kuminga's options are, that's not the money I want. So I want to go somewhere else. Now, there's other things in terms of base year compensation that prohibit a $30 million signing trade elsewhere, bringing back $30 million for the Warriors. We won't get into that. But Kuminga is saying, I don't want to be here. Let me go over here. And the Warriors saying, you can, but we want something back. And that team is saying, we don't want it back. So Kuminga's first option, signing with somebody else, isn't there because there's no money on the table. There's no salary space available, and teams are afraid of the second apron. And then the secondary layer that the asset coming back Golden State doesn't want. That's problem number one. Option number one. Option number two is to sign what the Warriors are offering him. But why would he want to do that? Back to you're just going to sit me here. You're probably going to trade me the first day that you're eligible to do so. And I don't really want to be back in this system where I know I'm going to be third fiddle, that if I make one mistake, Steve Kerr is going to bench me, because it's been a problem that they have dealt with for their entirety of his career there. I don't want to come back to that, no matter the money that you're willing to pay me, which you're not even willing to pay because Golden State isn't stepping up an offer that matches his playing value and not his market value. But at the end of the day, market value is what matters. That's option two. Option 3 is he signs the restricted free agency, which makes him essentially untradeable or non-tradable. He gets a no trade clause, and if he's traded, he loses bird rights to the team he goes to. So they can only sign him for the amount of cap space they have available. And yeah, sure, maybe next season has a bunch of cap space, but who's to say that Jonathan Kuminga is option number 1 for a team with cap space when alternatives could be maybe we clear a little bit more and use draft picks to bring in somebody who's better, right? So Kuminga does not become or does not maintain any type of standing. Those aren't good options. But that's what the CBA has made this for restricted free agency. You try to find a team that will give you the money that you want, but that's not happening. You try to navigate a signing trade, but with these new rules, you can't navigate that clearly. You can't do a 1 for $1. It's essentially 1 for 0.5. That completely limits a lot of the teams that are going to be interested in bringing these guys in. So that's not an avenue. Re-signing with your team, you want to have leverage to make more money, and you can't get leverage to make more money if nobody else is going to offer you any amount of money. So that seems relatively unsatisfactory. And then the third option is you have to go back and sign a deal that's not really beneficial. So is that the right way for free agency to exist? Is it the right way for teams to be so scared of spending money that they're going to only be investing in players that aren't as good, but that they know the dollar amount, and it keeps them under a second apron, or it keeps them under a first apron, or it keeps them out of the tax completely, which is what plenty of teams have done? I'm not saying that we get rid of restricted free agency, but this season it has felt the most restrictive. It has felt the most prohibitive for the player. And no, we don't want Shaquille O'Neal reruns where he plays in Orlando for 4 years and then leaves as soon as he possibly can. We don't want players to be superstars and suddenly back on the market for the team that they haven't even reached the start of their peak of. They haven't even reached close to their prime. Anthony Edwards, right? If he's able to be a free agent, every team in the world is going to want him. And if he's not restricted, every team in the world is going to be putting money on the table to get him there. But we should want to see him on the teams that we're drafted in. Restricted free agents does promote that returning of a player to where he came from. But that in and of itself is what gives me pause. Is that it's not bad, but if a player is so restricted that his value is either max rookie extensions or mid-level exception. If those are the two extremes, we're going to have really good players getting very undervalued and underpaid. Again, maybe this solves itself this coming season, after next summer, next offseason, when more teams have salary cap space. Maybe it solves itself. But it's something that I'm very interested in keeping an eye on. I don't know that the league changed it, but in a league that its players association is as pro player as they come and has made a lot of pushes on the league to become pro player, I wonder if this is something that eventually bubbles up. I don't know that it will, but it's something that I'm keeping my eye on.